one of those 4 spots.
Right.
I think now with the SEC playing, with the ACC playing, and with the Big 12 and Big 10, we're going to have a real college football playoff and perhaps somewhat of a real bowl season, which is extremely exciting considering where we were back in March and April.
Yeah, I think the thing that also you were talking about with not starting until October 24th is that these teams have not been practicing as much as OSU and the other Big 12 teams were practicing in June and July, and so now that gives them that time to practice with those COVID-19 precautions. Something, Nebraska, Iowa, and Ohio State were the 3 commissioners that voted to play back in August when the league decided to postpone, and so those 3 teams and like the parents and players from those colleges have been the ones that have been very vocal. But then Jim Harbaugh from Michigan has also been pretty vocal, and a quote that he said was, he's super excited about this, and he said to stay positive and test negative, and I thought that was just like kind of a fun thing for him to thinking about that. Most of the precautions that they're taking are similar to what we've been doing, but something that I wasn't aware that OSU is doing, so I'm pretty sure Big 12 has not implemented this, is that if a football player tests positive, they will be out for a full 21 days at the minimum, because they are going to do the EKG cardio testing, because what some people are figuring out is that COVID-19 is affecting student athletes' hearts. So what do you think about that, the whole 21 days being out of practice?
I understand. I understand why they've been not practicing, because frankly a lot of teams like Michigan State, Rutgers, they didn't believe that they were going to play. So if one school's practicing, the other schools don't need to be practicing. So I totally understand and why they need to start this season later, because they haven't had that the practice time needed. A lot of people were saying, why can't they just start up practice right now and play some games coming up? There's no way that that's even possible. So, but again, Alex, I am excited. I
am too, and it is, no one's really been speculating about the Pac-12 at all these last couple months, but the universities in California and Oregon do not have approval from the public health officials to start contact practice at all. So I personally don't think that the Pac-12 will change their minds. They've been pretty quiet since late July when they made the decision. So, like you said, it'll probably just be the 4 of the Power 5 conferences.
Yeah, and California, as you were saying, in Oregon, their laws for coronavirus are a lot stricter, and it's going to be a huge hurdle for those teams to be able to come back in the Pac-12. But we're excited that the Big Ten is playing. When we come back, we're going to talk about a tough weekend for the Big 12 last week in football, and a look ahead to this week's games. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Will Joyce, the Mayor of Stillwater. As Mayor, it's my responsibility to help develop plans for a variety of resident needs, including roads, emergency services, and utilities. Some of those services are paid for with federal money that the government distributes to states and communities based on Census Bureau data. This is your tax money coming back to our community, but if you or your household aren't counted, we lose nearly $1,200 per person to places like Texas, Kansas, and Arkansas. So help bring that money back to local communities by filling out the 2020 census. This year, it's easy to do. You'll receive a postcard in March 2020 with a unique code for your address. Using that code, simply go online, call, or request a paper copy of the census and fill it out. I want to make sure that you and your whole household are counted in the 2020 census. It's important not just to Stillwater, but to all of Payne County.
In to Behind the Line. Welcome back, I should say, to Behind the Line. I'm Parker Terrell here with Alex Dusky, and we are going to talk about some college football, specifically the Big 12. Alex, last week was a tough week, to say the least, for the Big 12.
It was. Two teams that did not have any issues at all were OU and Texas. Something to note is that both quarterbacks had outstanding games, which were expected. You know, OU played Missouri State, and Texas played who did they play?
They played UTEP.
UTEP. So both, the expected wins there. Something to look out for is that OU does have a redshirt freshman quarterback with Spencer Rattler.
Mm-hmm.
So some new faces over there. Familiar face with Texas 4-year starter Sam Ehlinger. Do you have any takeaways from that game? I know that they were pretty easy opponents.
Yeah. So as you said, the teams that really rolled at the top of the conference were OU and Texas. OU winning 48-0, and Texas winning 59-3 over UTEP. And I mean, it's a lot of the same. It's a lot of what you expected. I mean, Spencer Rattler was 14 of 17, 290 yards and 4 touchdowns, and really only 3 quarters, if that, of play. I mean, OU had a lot of problems with coronavirus. They had a lot of guys out for this game. They were petitioning to get that game perhaps moved to this week, as OSU and Tulsa did, but they didn't end up doing that. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's a lot of the same, Alex. A lot of pundits picked OU to win the conference, as they have for many years,
yeah.
and Texas to finish second to them. And these results, I mean, don't change my mind in terms of the hierarchy of the Big 12, who's good and who's not. Oklahoma, even though they lost CeeDee Lamb, they lost Jalen Hurts, they lost Kennedy Brooks, they're still an excellent team,
yeah.
especially on the offensive side of the ball.
A team that did win, but just barely, is Texas Tech. They won at home against Houston Baptist, but only by 2. What do you think that says about Texas Tech? People were predicting them to be not top like OU Texas, but still give Oklahoma State a run for their money this season.
I mean, Houston Baptist had already lost a game, I believe, to North Texas, so maybe they got beat by North Texas last season. I don't have that up with me right now, but I do know that was their second loss of the season, because they played on week 1. It's pretty embarrassing, honestly. Houston Baptist is not a good football team at all, and Texas Tech was rolling in this game, and then they just decided to give up a bunch of points in the second half to this Houston Baptist team. I'm not going to make I'm not going to overreact to this.
Early in the season, for sure.
There's some games that were coming up to that I don't believe are overreactions, but with this game with Texas Tech, I just think that they lost their focus in the second half. I don't think that they're a great team,
mm-hmm.
But I do think that it might be a little of an overreaction to say that Texas Tech is just going to be, go 1-8 this upcoming season.
But what about that Iowa State loss to the University of Louisiana, and that was Louisiana's first win against a ranked opponent on the road? And Iowa State was still a good team this year too. So
it honestly wasn't even just like they just had an amazing game, and it was like a nail biter to the end. Mm-hmm. Louisiana destroyed Iowa State on Saturday. The final score was 31-14. It could have been higher than that.
Yeah.
So much disappointment from the Iowa State side. And I know that they tend to start slow every single year, and then all of a sudden they're beating OU in middle October or OSU, but this is just embarrassing. This is embarrassing for the Cyclones. This is embarrassing for Matt Campbell. It's obvious that they weren't ready for this game. Mm-hmm. Now, I will credit Louisiana. They're a good team. They're predicted to finish first in their conference. They have a lot of returning guys, but I still think that Iowa State had a lot more talent. They were ranked 23rd coming into this game. Brock Purdy, who's supposed to be this big-time quarterback, perhaps an NFL first-round draft pick, did not show up at all in this game. I'm going to go to the box score here for this game. And, Purdy was 16 of 35, 145 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception with a quarterback rating of 26.6 out of 100. That is bad.
Yeah,
that is really, really bad against a smaller school, a group of 5 school.
Yes.
So I don't know what to say. If you're an Iowa State fan right now and you're watching this, I'm really sorry, and I don't know how your season is really going to end up. When we come back, we're going to talk about some OSU players in the National Football League that had a really tough first week, and one of them that did not. Be sure to stick with us here on Behind the Line. And we are back. Alex, we just talked about the Big 12, how they had a tough weekend last week in college football. Let's shift to the professional league. There's some former Oklahoma State football players that had a really tough first week of the NFL season. Let's start off with America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. Tight end Blake Jarwin had an ACL injury.
Yes, and they have not fully released if it's a complete tear, partial tear, just that he has suffered an ACL injury and that he will be requiring surgery for that. It's unsure if he's expected to be out the entire season, but that's what people are speculating, is that it will be the whole season, which is tough for the Cowboys. That's their starting tight end, so they're going to be scrambling for that. And then another Oklahoma State player that suffered a for sure season-ending injury is Packers guard Lane Taylor. He had his second season-ending injury in 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Last year was a bicep tear, I think it was, and then this year he has suffered a knee injury that will require surgery and will be out for the season.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough first week for both of those guys, especially Lane Taylor, as you said. He's a guy that has a lot of promise there on that interior offensive line for the Packers, blocking for Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and it's just kind of heartbreaking to see him go down for a second season in a row.
Especially because last season that injury happened in the second game of the season, and now this year it was in the first game of the season. So he's just had 2, basically no season 2 years in a row.
Yeah, that's really tough. Hopefully next season he can come back healthy for the Packers and get a full season, or at least a part of a season in. But going back to Blake Jarwin, that's a really big loss for the Cowboys because they got rid of Jason Witten, who they brought back out of retirement last season to play tight end for them. And Blake Jarwin just seemed like he was being suppressed by them basically forcing the ball to Jason Witten. Well, now Jason Witten's gone. He's with the Las Vegas Raiders.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be weird all season saying. But it just stinks for Blake Jarwin, and it stinks for for all Cowboys fans because he was a guy that they were really excited about. They gave a a new contract in the offseason to be their guy, their starting tight end, and for him to go down with that ACL injury, which is always nasty. I mean, it's really tough.
It is for sure, and I saw today a fantasy article is how to replace Blake Jarwin in your fantasy team.
Yeah.
So even those that aren't Cowboys fans are are upset about losing him for the season.
Not all bad news, though, for
Correct.
former Cowboys. Former Biletnikoff Award winner James Washington, receiver at Oklahoma State, had a great game on Monday Night Football for the Steelers.
Yes, the Steelers were playing the New York Giants at their stadium in New Jersey. The final was 26-16. So I will say the Steelers kind of gave, or the Giants gave the Steelers a little bit of issue early on, but as you can see, these are some highlights of James Washington
Yeah.
with his receptions
Here's
and
his touchdown right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you can see, that was just like, it was a really athletic move of him hurdling the guy to get into that end zone, just really fighting for it.
Yeah, a lot of guys would have probably gone down there at the 2 or 3 yard line, but he decided that, he was going to push through. And and that's something that, as you can see, his teammates celebrating with him.
Yeah.
They love to see that fight. They love to see that grit to not give up on the play and to get in for 6 there. I'm excited. James Washington had a really tough year last year. A lot of people expected him to be kind of that second receiver for the Steelers after Juju Smith-Schuster, and he did not step up at all. So I am excited to see them feeding him the ball early. With their returning quarterback who was out all last season in Big Ben Roethlisberger.
Yes, and then also with the Steelers is quarterback Mason Rudolph. You know, with Ben being healthy, it's probably unlikely that Rudolph will get much playing time. But do you anticipate him, you know, if the Steelers are ever like really far ahead, that they'll put him in, or in case of an injury, where do you think he stands in that lineup?
I don't know. They brought back Josh Dobbs to be another quarterback in that room.
Tennessee.
Last season, Mason didn't have a great year, of course. The infamous Myles Garrett helmet incident comes to mind. But apart from that, I mean, he didn't have a good year at all, and he's going to have to really earn his teammates' trust back if he wants to see the field. All right, we're going to commercial, but when we come back, we're going to talk about Oklahoma State's home game against the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. We're going to give some over-unders and some players to watch. Stay right here on Behind the Line. Hello and welcome back to Behind the Line. Parker Terrell here with Alex Dusky. In our final segment, we're going to talk about the upcoming game, Oklahoma State versus Tulsa. Alex, our OSU insider, who are some players to watch?
All right, so on offense, I have LD Brown. He is the second string running back behind Chuba Hubbard, but arguably might be the fastest player on the team. His best game was against Baylor last season. He had 4 carries, 79 yards, and 1 touchdown. He had a 68 yard long run against that game, and then him against Tulsa last season, he had 5 carries for 22 yards, no touchdowns, but you know he's definitely someone to watch on the offensive side of the ball. And then for defense, for sure, Christian Holmes. He is the grad transfer from Mizzou. I've talked about him before on this show. He's at cornerback, and in interviews, Coach Gundy loves him. He has nothing but high praise to say for him. And so everyone is really excited to have him back, or have him on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, here's some highlights of Christian Holmes that you were talking about. I mean, I'm excited for him as well, coming from the SEC, where, I mean, we all know how good of players they are, how good of receivers that he's going up against. And I just think he brings that ball hawk mentality that the Oklahoma State defense has kind of lacked a little bit in the past years. And hopefully he can step up and be that cornerback. Number one cornerback alongside Rodarius Williams.
Yes.
So for me, Alex, some players to watch. Another grad transfer is Tay Martin at receiver. He comes from Washington State. Not a lot of people are talking about like how big of a deal it was that he decided to transfer here. Of course, he decided to transfer amidst the coronavirus pandemic when he learned that the Pac-12 wasn't going to play. But he has started 26, not including bowl games, 26 games in a row. For the Washington State Cougars. He started every game as a sophomore and as a junior. Last season as a junior, he caught 43 passes for 564 yards and 4 touchdowns. Excuse me, he had some injuries, so he only started 7 games, but he was a starter for every game his sophomore year.
This week in media availability, Coach Gundy has been talking about him a lot and has said that we should expect Tay Martin to get an extensive number of snaps this Saturday. So kind of predicted before Gundy had it out. And Tylan Wallace, a receiver, said that he spoke highly of Tay Martin as well, saying that he's just a really good ball player, and we should all expect to see a lot from him.
Yeah, so they kind of play the same position, Wallace and Tay Martin, that outside receiver. So I would think that Martin is going to give Wallace some reps because, remember, Tylan Wallace hasn't played a football game in a long time, since October of last year, early October of last year. So he's going to need some breathers. He's going to need probably on reduced snaps for this game.
He recently had to, in practice they wear the green jersey for no contact. So it's like, this is a recent change. He said yesterday, but like the brace is off. He feels good, back how he felt last year, and he's ready to play. So we should also expect some from him.
Yeah, another guy for me to watch is Colby Harvell-Peel in the secondary. He's going to be the leader of that secondary. Last year, he was arguably the best safety in the Big 12, and I'm looking for him to really step up and lead that super talented secondary, including Christian Holmes you talked about. All right, we're going to go to some over-under. Okay, so the first topic is, so I'm going to give you a number, and I'm going to ask you think it's going to go over or under. First thing, quarterback for Oklahoma State, Spencer Sanders, 200 passing yards, over, under.
I'm going to have to say under. I will give Spencer all the credit. He's worked really hard this season with Coach Rattay, just like being more comfortable with being the quarterback, but that's a lot of yards for the first game of the season after this long period of not playing. So I'm gonna have to go with under on that one. Okay.
To me, I'm gonna pick the over. Okay. I think Tulsa, as we talked about last week in our preview show, Tulsa is really rebuilding their defense, especially that secondary, and I think that Sanders is going to want to show people how much work that he's put in the offseason under Coach Tim Rattay, and how much that he can really dictate a game with his arm, not his legs. I think Spencer Sanders is going to go over that number. Second over-under, Chuba Hubbard, 250 yards.
I'm going to have to go over just because last year against Tulsa, he had 256 rushing yards, so he already hit that mark. And, everyone's been talking about Chuba since last season, and he himself has said how excited he is just to be back out here, and his motivation to win as a team, not necessarily an individual. I think that the team's really pushing him to have a good game just to start off the season on the right foot. So I'm going to take the over.
To be contrarian, I'll say the under, but I do think that he's going to have a big game, but maybe he doesn't hit that number because they're going to keep him out quickly. Defense forcing 2 turnovers, over, under.
I'm going to say over. We've been talking about our defense is pretty strong, and Tulsa is kind of lacking in strength on their just in the offense. They're a pretty young team. So I have faith in our defense. We've been hyping ourselves up, and like we said, 10 out of 11 defensive starters returning, and now with the addition of Christian Holmes, we have a full really strong defense.
I'm going to take the over as well, or perhaps just a push. We forced 2 turnovers, but I think that the defense is experienced and is going to help win this game for the Cowboys. Quickly, your prediction for the game, the score.
I'm going to say 42-3 Oklahoma State. Go
I'm
Big or
going to
go
say
home.
48-10 Oklahoma State. Thank you so much for watching Behind the Line. We are every week Wednesday at 2:45 on Suddenlink Channel 112, Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire Stick, and YouTube on the Ocali Media page. For Alex, I'm Parker. God bless, and see you next week.
Oh, there you go. Superstar.
The end of the practice is when we do all of our intensity drills.
Okay.
She was going at it.
Stop. If we get them to Detroit by, let's say Monday the 15th. Time's right there. There we go. Yeah. Just, you can't.
Don't want to talk about it.
When you see the water tower, you're gonna make a right.
If we win this, is the one way to get to the playoffs. I know.
Welcome everyone to the first pregame report of the 2020 Cowboy football season. I'm Lainey Gerber, and across from me is Parker Terrell. What's up, Parker?
Hey, Laney. How's it going?
It's going well. Are you excited for today's game?
I am so excited that football is officially back here in Stillwater.
Same. And so obviously we're playing today at 11 right after this show. Next Saturday, the Cowboys are home again versus West Virginia at 2:30. After that, there's 2 away games at Kansas and Baylor. October 24th, we are home versus Iowa State, and the weekend after that, Halloween, we are home versus Texas. That's going to be a good weekend. Weekend after that, we are at Kansas State. After that is Bedlam at OU, sadly not here at Boone Pickens Stadium. November 28th, we're home versus Texas Tech, and we finish off the season on December 5th at TCU.
It's a good schedule, Laney. I think that it sets up pretty favorably. I don't think that we have 2 back-to-back really tough games. We'll see about Baylor. We haven't got to see them play this season. They were supposed to play Houston today in a big game that had gotten postponed last week, and it got to this week, and they're not going to play due to Baylor not meeting the COVID Big 12 protocol threshold. They didn't have any positive tests, but due to contact tracing, they weren't able to field a full team. But I'm excited about today's game, Laney. Obviously, the game got postponed. from last week. They were supposed to play last week, Oklahoma State against Tulsa, but this week it is a full send. We are ready to go, and I just can't wait. I'm really excited and really anxious and interested to see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm just grateful that we even get to have this football season. It's crazy to see other college football teams on week 3 with all the ESPN notifications, and we're here like getting ready to start week 1.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're in the Big Ten or the Pac-12, you got a long ways before football starts, and before this week, it wasn't going to start at all. So
yeah.
like you said, I'm just really happy. Back in March and April, the idea of college football in the fall just really wasn't feasible. We didn't know a lot about this pandemic, and we didn't have the testing available. But now that we're here, the Big 12 is committed to player safety, and we're going to get this thing rolling.
Yeah, and the Big 12 has those rapid tests now that I think all the players are taking either like the morning before the game or the day before the game. They get the results in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's great. And shout out to the Big 12 for being one of those leagues that wasn't straight up right out of the bat saying we're not playing like the Pac-12 did. They're like, no, we want to play. We're going to try to figure out if we can make this work. We're not going to throw anything in steel yet. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with all that. I was happy to see the Big 12 take that stance because apparently the Big 12 was really the deciding factor. The SEC and the ACC wanted to play. The Big 10 and the Pac-12 didn't want to play, so the Big 12 was kind of the swing vote. They decided to play, and here we are today. But going back to the schedule here for OSU, I think that a lot of people may have written off a lot of the Big 12 teams that lost this past week. Iowa State, of course, losing to Louisiana, and Kansas State losing to Arkansas State. But I'm here to tell you they're going to bounce back. Both of those teams are really well coached. They have a lot of good players, especially Iowa State with their quarterback Brock Purdy. I don't think that those results will indicate how this season is going to go. So even though I said that our schedule sets up favorably, we've got back-to-back weeks against Iowa State at home and then Texas at home. That could be a pretty tough stretch. And then when you follow that up with a road game to Manhattan and to Kansas State, and if there's any team, any two teams that are going to bounce back from a really tough first week, it's going to be Iowa State and it's going to be Kansas State. We've seen this time and time again. They've started the season super slow. All of a sudden, you look up and in November, Iowa State is beating OU in Norman. So I just Oklahoma State fans out there that may think, oh, this is going to be a 3-team race just between Texas, OU, and us. I mean, I would be a little bit apprehensive that the other teams in the Big 12 will have a little bit to say about this season.
Yeah, a lot of people are really discrediting the Big 12 after last weekend, and I don't know why they're so quick to talk. OSU hasn't even started playing yet.
Yeah, but Lainey, I'm excited about this game. I think that Tulsa is a great first opponent for OSU. I think that they're a team that we can definitely get a win against too, and we'll get to predictions later, but I'm really excited for the kickoff today.
Yeah, and we're going to throw it over to Adam at the news desk, and he is going to tell us who has the edge in this game, OSU versus Tulsa, and their schedules.
Well, that is right. Thank you so much, Lainey and Parker. It is so great to have football back here in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Like you guys mentioned, the schedules. Oklahoma State in the Big 12. Any team, any year you have a Big 12 schedule, it's going to be a tough schedule, all right? It's the Big 12 after all. Tulsa, they are in the American Conference, probably one of the stronger group of 5 conferences in NCAA FBS. If you look a year ago, Tulsa did have a pretty tough schedule a season ago, 4-8. That included a loss at home in Tulsa against Oklahoma State. And a very crazy fact here is that only 2 American Conference opponents that Tulsa is playing this season did they beat them a year ago. But it is a tough schedule, so they have OSU here in Stillwater. Next week, they'll be going over to Arkansas State, then Central Florida, back home on October 17th. That's right, their 4th game will be a home game against Cincinnati, then South Florida, Eastern Carolina, then always a good game when you play a Armed Forces Academy like Navy, SMU, Tulane, and Houston. So that is the schedule for Tulsa. Well, Oklahoma State, like you said, there's nothing major. I mean, you have no major back-to-back games. You've got Oklahoma in Norman. Well, really, no matter where you play, Bedlam, it's going to be tough, all right? Then you have Baylor. I mean, like I said, it's the Big 12. The Big 12 is tough. So that is all I have for the scheduling with the 2 teams. So we're going to send it back to you guys.
All right. Thanks, Adam.
So one thing, Lainey, quickly here before we send it to someone else. Do you think that what do you think about the schedule, Lainey? I feel like I've talked a lot about this. What do you think about how the schedule sets up for Oklahoma State?
No, I think it's set up very well. I'm thinking to previous years where there's been things like 4 home games in a row. Things like that can get pretty tiring because, home games involve so much more, like for fans and the players with all the pregame, postgame, like halftime festivities. But yeah, so I like how it's set up. It's like home, away, home, away, home. Like it's not tough. It's not endearing on the players.
Yeah, and this season, and this season particularly, I don't know if home field advantage will help, just because the players are comfortable and they're familiar with their own field and their own facilities. But obviously, that home field advantage is not going to be as big as it would be normally.
Yeah.
So I really think that it comes down to this season just being locked in every single game. All right, we're going to send it now to Alex Dusky, who's at Boone Pickens Stadium, live outside there. We'll take it to Alex.
Hey guys, I'm here outside Boone Pickens Stadium. We've been out here for about an hour now, and we weren't able to see the team doing the walk into the stadium with the coaches following behind. As you can see, there are some fans behind me. There are some fans behind me that are all following social distance guidelines, wearing masks, and we are really excited to see that. The weather outside is wonderful. It's about 64 degrees right now and should be about 70 degrees at kickoff. It's a great day for college football, and we are so excited to see the Cowboys play today. We'll be back in the studio with Parker and Lainey after this break.
You're off of her, right?
Welcome back, everyone. I think one of the biggest stories for this season, besides the whole big three on offense, is the special teams, because there's a lot going on and a lot changing over there. Matt Amendola is gone, as we know, and he was really reliable for the Cowboys. He converted 20 of 26 field goals on the year last year, including 11 from 40 yards or longer. So I think that kind of put a hole in the team, but there are two kickers on the roster right now, and that is Alex Hale and Jake McClure. McClure handled the kickoff duties last year. Hale saw action in just 2 games and has not attempted a field goal or an extra point, But on a Zoom call on August 31st, Gundy did say that Hale has got the nod right now for PATs and in the field goal department. What do you think about that, Parker?
Yeah, it's always you always have some apprehension as a fan when your team is breaking in a new kicker for the first time. So I fully expect some jitters in this game. I do think there is going to be some field goals, especially in the second half when hopefully like maybe some second units are out there and maybe some drives stall. So I think Alex Hale is going to get a lot of playing time today. He's a guy from Australia. Like you said, he's been on the roster for a while. But I'm excited to see that. Another thing that we talk about with special teams is the punting. So Tom Hutton, last year, 29-year-old freshman. He was a Big 12 honorable mention. He had a really good first year adjusting to American football. Of course, he played Australian rules football, and then he came over here. So now he's a 30-year-old true sophomore at punter. And I really think that he can be a weapon for Oklahoma State this year. Especially with that year under his belt. And punting is a super underrated statistic for a team to have because that really sets up your defense. And for a team like Oklahoma State, and we'll get to it a little while later talking about the defense, but this is a really experienced unit. They have a lot of guys coming back. They have a lot of guys that are really talented. So if you're able to have a really good defense and a really good punter to pin teams deep, I mean, that's a really good combination, and you see that from really good teams like Alabama, like Clemson, and, of course, like OU. So, but Laney, another person to talk about in special teams is a guy named Brennan Presley. So you know about Brennan Presley? You're familiar with that guy?
Oh, absolutely. He's been really impressive in these like preseason practices and stuff. I think you brought him up because we're talking about punt returns with him. Yeah, I think he definitely has a shot for that. That's been Stoner's job. But, I mean, give the freshman a shot. Why not? The Cowboys could always use a big kickoff return threat. And Presley did plenty of that in high school, too. He played for Bixby, who won the state championship the last 2 years in a row. So it looks like he can do it at the college level, too, I think.
Yeah, right now, Presley is listed as like the backup for the punt returner. But as we all know, Stoner has had that duty for a long time. He's very reliable. He's usually a fair catch guy. He doesn't return a whole lot of punts. That's a Gundy thing. He likes to be really conservative on the punt return front, usually just taking a fair catch wherever they can get it. But Brennan Presley is a guy that has a ton of electricity in terms of kick returns and punt returns. He is super fast. They only list him at 5'8", 165 pounds. That might be soaking wet, 165 pounds. He is a smaller guy, but he is lightning quick and lightning fast.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not going to go this far, but he reminds you of a lot of a guy that's in the NFL now with the Kansas City Chiefs named Tyreek Hill. He's a smaller guy. He comes from a track background, and he just has that second level for punt returns and kick returns that you really just can't teach. But as you said, he played at Bixby. He was the Oklahoma Gatorade Football Player of the Year. So he's a highly touted recruit coming in, and I think that the biggest impact that will be made for him is going to be on special teams, and the coaches echo that.
Absolutely. And I think a position that we can't overlook on special teams is the long snapper. People overlook long snappers, but if your long snapper drops that ball, like that can be your game. Reliable long snappers are so overlooked, but they are so needed. And we have Matt Hembrow returning. That man does not miss. He is on point every single time. If you watch a long snapping video he did, he can like hit cups off of coolers. He can hit it through a target. He can get it off a balcony into a trash can. And that's a really important weapon to have for sure.
Yeah, I think that special teams comes down to continuity. And so when you've got a guy like Matt Hembrow, like you were talking about, who has worked with Hutton for now a year, and I'm sure that he's worked with Hale a lot in practice, and McClure, if McClure ends up being the guy that takes the kicks, then this unit has a lot of guys that know each other, that are familiar with each other, and that is what eliminates those mistakes. The kicking game, no one really thinks about until there's a big mess up, until there's a dropped punt that goes back for a touchdown.
Absolutely.
So I think that to eliminate those mistakes and be as conservative as you can while also pinning a team deep in the punting game is really what it takes to be really good at special teams. And I think Oklahoma State has a good chance to be really good this year on that side of the ball.
Awesome. Our weakness last year was definitely the punting game. So as long as Tom Hutton can get that together this year, I think that we're going to be great. But Adam, who do you think has the edge in the special teams?
Well, first things first, I do think Oklahoma State has the edge in special teams. Now, first of all, I love special teams. I am a huge special teams guy. But yeah, let's talk about the punters. Tom Hutton, right, a 30-year-old Aussie, true sophomore, had a decent season a season ago. He did win, or I guess he was awarded All Big 12 honorable mention. He had more than a dozen punts inside the 20. But the thing with him is that his yardage was not large, right? His average was about 39, 42 yards. That's decent. But the thing is, his leg was not the biggest a season ago. But really, the whole point of the punter is to pin the ball deep, not necessarily about yardage. And then, like you said, Brendan Presley, a local kid, well, I guess Bixby, the Tulsa area, tremendous athlete. I'm hearing a lot of great things in practice with Coach Gundy and all the stuff he's been working on behind closed doors. Well, for Tulsa, it's kind of the familiar situation, right? Their kicker, Zach Lawn, is just like Alex Hale in the sense that he has experience kicking off, but he's only attempted one field goal, which was, unfortunately for him, a miss. And then, like you say, with the emergence of Australian kickers and punters, their punter, Lachlan Wilson, also an Australian native. But like you said, Parker, something that will be really interesting to watch is the kick returning, punt returning. Like you said, Gundy, he's a conservative mind when it comes to that. Mostly fair catches. The stats do not pop out. And remember, like you said, Parker, the last time the stats did pop out was the Cheetah, the former Oklahoma State Cowboy Tyreek Hill. So, all in all, Oklahoma State has the edge in special teams. That is all I have for who has the edge in special teams. Let's send it back to you guys, Parker and Lainey.
All right, thank you, Adam. Yeah, Gundy has said before that him and like a lot of his coaching staff don't really oversee the special teams. He said they kind of do their own thing. They practice on their own time, not necessarily with the rest of the team on their hard schedule. So I think we talked about like how their relationships with each other is so important. And I think that just makes it even stronger, you know, having to communicate when you want to practice. It's just them like chilling at the practice facility and practicing what they do.
Yeah, so Oklahoma State doesn't have a special teams coach. They haven't for a long time. That's been widely criticized by some because of some of the special teams woes that we had a couple of years ago. But Gundy has somewhat taken over that role as like a special teams coach himself. I think that he really puts his attention on that because he has seen how turnovers on that side of the ball and mistakes on that side of the ball can cost a team in the long run. When the team was having so much trouble with the special teams was Taylor Cornelius's year, and we all know how that turned out. It was not the best year for the Cowboys overall. I'm not blaming that all on the special teams, but it's really deflating when your defense can get a 4 and out, and then there's an issue with the punt return and someone fumbles it, and all of a sudden they get the ball in great field position. So as I talked about before, it's just a lot about eliminating mistakes and pinning guys deep. I'm excited, though, to see how Alex Hale performs today. I think that that's one of the things that we really need to focus on. We know that he's going to be nervous. It's his first game as a starter. It's going to be his first kicks, as you said, in a game. So I'm expecting some nerves, but I just hope that we see a guy who's confident when his team needs him. Another thing that we didn't really talk about was kick returners. College football, the game is really transitioned to where kick returning is not as big of a focus as it used to be because there's lots of injuries that occur on kickoff returns, and so it was moved up. So there's just a lot of touchbacks. But I think who OSU has back there, Braden Johnson and LD Brown, the two fastest guys on the team according to the coaches, that could be a weapon in case a kicker decides to leave it short.
Absolutely, yeah. I think not having a special teams coach is definitely something weird. I think guys coming out of high school, you know, entering college, it's a total new ballgame as it is, and now there's no special teams coach for them. So it's a good thing our special teams is pretty well-versed in it and pretty experienced, except for Alex Hale. So that's definitely going to be something we want to watch because he did only see 2 games last season.
Yeah, and it's all about confidence with this squad. With a lot of things, like we're going to talk about defense coming up after we send it to Alex at Boone Pickens and come back from break. But that's really the theme for this season, Lainey, is experience. We have a lot of experience on the defensive side of the ball. We have a lot of experience on the offensive side of the ball. We have a lot of experience on the special teams aside from the kicker. So it's all about the whole team supporting him, making sure that he has those confidence to hit those kicks late, because honestly, it may come down to a kick. It may come down to us needing Alex Hale in the first quarter to hit a couple of field goals if the offense decides to stall. So that's something to really look for today, how the new kicker, Alex Hale, and the rest of the special teams unit does. Okay, now we're sending it to Alex, right, Lainey?
Yes, we're
Sorry.
going to send it. You're good. We're going to send it back to Alex at BPS really quick, and she's going to give us another update.
Oh, there you go. Superstar. Oh, there you go. Superstar.
The end of the practice is when we do all of our like intensity drills.
Okay.
She was going at it.
Stop. If we get them to Detroit by, let's say like Monday the 15th. Right there. There we go. Yeah. Just, you can't.
Don't want to talk about it.
When you see the water tower, you're gonna make a right.
If we win this, is the one way to get to the playoffs.
I know.
Welcome back to the pregame show. I'm here at Boone Pickens Stadium again. Things are starting to pick up. It's getting more lively out here. As you can see, there's a lot more fans behind me starting to file into the stadium since it's about 40 minutes to kick off now. As I said earlier, everyone is still following the social distancing guidelines and the mask policy, which is great. The security is doing an outstanding job making sure that people are following these rules. The clear bag policy is a new rule for Boone Pickens Stadium this year, and people are following that as well, so it's great to see that our Cowboy fans are doing their job. An update from the field is that the 4 team captains will be Chuba Hubbard, Landon Wolf, Malcolm Rodriguez, and Rodarius Williams, and they will be wearing a classic Cowboy uniform with the white helmet, orange jersey, and white pants. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Alex, and thanks for sticking through those live camera field shot technical difficulties. Those hit all of us.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the defense now because they're something that I've been wanting to talk about for a while now. We have a lot of key members returning, highlighting Calvin Bundage is back, Colby Harvell-Peel, and Trace Ford. And so we know that Calvin was out all last season with his back injury. Eamon Ongbong-Bamiga was starting over him, and he now is still starting over him, even though Calvin is healthy. Eamon is really good, and obviously I don't think we're worried at all about him filling in for Calvin. But I don't think we can forget who Calvin is and how much of a beast he is, even though Eamon is one too.
Yeah, there's a lot of things, Lainey, that went into that decision. Calvin Bundage was brought in under a totally different defensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. So he fit a scheme that Oklahoma State doesn't really run as much anymore. But I still think that he can provide a lot of help when it comes to rushing the passer. That was really his specialty before he got hurt and was out all last season, was rushing the passer. So I think that that's a guy that they bring in like on third down as a pass rush specialist to try to go after the quarterback. Whereas Amen Agban-Bamiga and Malcolm Rodriguez are more of the tackling guys. Oklahoma State under Jim Knowles runs a 4-2-5 defense. Those two in the middle are Rodriguez and Agban-Bamiga. So they're guys that are running sideline to sideline. They're making tackles inside the numbers. Calvin Bundage, that was never his strength. He was more of a lean guy that wanted to come around the edge and go after the quarterback, like I said. But I'm excited too, Laney. 10 of 11 returning starters. The third year now under Coach Jim Knowles, and the defense showed a lot of promise late in the season. A lot of people were out on Jim Knowles, saying that maybe he wasn't the answer for Oklahoma State. As we see here, I believe, this is the pick 6 by Malcolm Rodriguez to seal that game last season against Iowa State. And that's really when the defense started gaining traction. That game really helped us turn the corner on that side of the ball. So I'm excited, Laney. I think the defense wins championships is the ad nauseum said statement, but it's true. You can't win a lot of championships or win a lot of anything with a poor defense, and I think Oklahoma State has shaping up to be one of the best that we've had in a long time.
Absolutely. The only defensive member that's not returning is cornerback A.J. Green. But we have safety Colby Harvell-Peel also returning, and he was first-team All-Big 12 last year, both through the coaches and the Associated Press. And he was honored by the OSU coaches with the Bob Fenimore Award presented to the team's most valuable player. Last season, he had 71 tackles, 5 interceptions, 13 pass breakups, and 2 forced fumbles. So I think he could be a really good safety. Him and Trey could really be out there as like the best safety duo in the nation.
I think Colby Harvell-Peel is going to be the leader on defense for the Cowboys. He's going to be, along with Malcolm Rodriguez, the two guys that are calling out signals. Rodriguez, of course, will be the front 7, and Colby will be the secondary. This secondary is shaping up to be, again, one of the best that we've had for a long time. We've got Rodarius Williams coming back, who's been a corner. This will be, I think, his 3rd year as a starting cornerback. That's a ton of experience for a position that just rotates guys in and out due to injury, due to graduation rates. So that's a big plus to have a lot of experience there. And, of course, Christian Holmes, the grad transfer from Missouri, he's got a lot of experience in the premier conference in the country, in the SEC. He's got a lot of experience going up against guys that are going to play on Sundays, playing receivers. So you've got those two guys. And then in the secondary, you've got Colby Harvell-Peel and Trey Sterling, who arguably were the 2 best guys on the defense last year, not named Rodriguez and Amen. So, and not to mention Jarek Bernard-Converse. So this secondary is loaded, Laney. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And in the Big 12, where passing is such a huge priority and having a good secondary is what wins a lot of games, I think Oklahoma State is shaping up to be that best secondary, even over the likes of teams that get 5-star recruits like OU, like Texas. We've built up a solid group of a grad transfer and some guys that come in or maybe 3-star athletes. But I'm really excited about that. You talked about Trace Ford. What are your thoughts on him? Do you think that he can make that leap in year 2?
Absolutely. Last year, he was presented the Russell Okung Award as OSU's outstanding newcomer, so you can only build on that after receiving such an award. He was honorable mention all Big 12, so he could have had a little bit more there, but he did receive votes for Big 12 Defensive Freshman of the Year. So I think that was a great breakout year that he needed, and this is going to be the year that he really just takes it up.
He's a guy that has immense talent. I mean, you can see it. He popped on tape last year, especially towards the end of the season, which is how freshmen usually operate. They learn the defense, and then they start getting comfortable later in the season. I'm excited to see what he does in his 2nd year. I think he's probably the most talented athletically on the defense, and I'm excited to see how he can get after the quarterback this year.
All right, Adam, OSU's defense versus Tulsa's. Who do you think has the edge?
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting matchup. Once again, though, I do think OSU defense does have the edge. And you know what's funny is all this talk about defense special teams is making me really excited for the game. I just checked my clock. It's about 30 minutes until kickoff. I cannot wait. But yes, I agree with a lot of what you guys said. Calvin Bundage, right? He had a great season, started strong, then he had an injury. And then because of that, because he was, crippled and not able to do a lot of stuff, people wrote him off. And I think I really think it's disrespect to him. I mean, obviously he had an injury. That's not his fault. He can't control it, right? He got injured. It's football. It happens. I expect Calvin Bundage to bounce back strong. The secondary is elite. Actually, check that. The entire defense of Oklahoma State is elite. You've got Trey Sterling, right, from Sunnyvale, Texas. Colby Harvell-Peel, which is funny, is Colby Harvell-Peel, in a few weeks, he will be releasing his 5th rap album, so he is doing big things off the field as well on the field. But like you guys said, like you said, Parker, Jarek Bernard Converse, representing Shreveport, Louisiana. He's a junior. He will have a good season. Tanner McAllister, right? Another Texas guy. There are so many Texas natives on this roster. Lots of Texans, lots of Oklahomans. Rodarius Williams, the safety. He will have a very, very strong season as well. A few interceptions, right? If you look a year ago, Trey Sterling, I believe, had 5 interceptions a season ago. This season will be fantastic for Oklahoma State. I'm so excited. And really, we don't know a whole lot about this Tulsa defense. You know, a lot of new players, missing a lot of returners. So it's something that we're just going to have to wait and see. And I'm sure we'll be able to get a good glimpse of that Tulsa defense today. But like I said, less than 30 minutes until kickoff. That is all I have for defense. Once again, to reiterate, Oklahoma State defense has the edge. Back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Adam. We talked about how the defense can really start out a little slow when they're newer guys or they're freshmen, and then they break out. And Trey Sterling is one of those guys who entered last season relatively unknown with only 2 career tackles, but he established himself as one of the Cowboys' top defensive players. And he started 11 of the 12 games that he played, and now he was named first team preseason All Big 12. So I'm really excited to see him in the backfield.
Yeah, he's a guy that Gundy talked about last season. As a freshman, he didn't really care. He wasn't trying hard in practice. He wasn't making it a point to go to film room and all that kind of stuff. And we saw last year what it takes. Trey Sterling learned what it takes to be that starting guy, to be that guy who makes a lot of plays. And it really hurt Oklahoma State in the Bedlam game. I believe it was him that got ejected, right? In the beginning. Yes. It was Trey Sterling. He got ejected for a very questionable targeting hit in that game. And after
he had
that,
to sit that out through the beginning of the game they played after that as well.
Yeah, and so it was really tough on the defense there. You could see that they were deflated. So I think even though I mentioned that Colby Harvell-Peel is going to be the captain on that defense, Trey Sterling is also a huge leader, and he's also an extreme talent in terms of just raw athletic ability.
Mm-hmm. And he has great coverage skills, and he provides a great option to cover receivers in both man and zone coverage. So I'm really excited to see him do both of that this year. Last year, he did allow the 3rd fewest yards per catch, allowing in coverage among all Division I defensive backs. And that was at 7.7 yards per catch to opposing receivers. So I think him, like Trace Ford, are just going to have outstanding seasons this year.
Yeah, we didn't talk much about Tanner McAllister. Adam mentioned him, but he's a guy that he kind of goes by the wayside when you talk about this Oklahoma State defense. But again, he's another returning starter. He's kind of that third wheel when we talk about Harvell-Peel and Sterling, but McAllister is a big, long, lanky guy. He's a guy that can cover tight ends. He's a guy that can cover really big receivers. I mean, we talked about it a lot. This defense is primed to be one of the best in the Big 12. And when we've seen Oklahoma State have a lot of success in 2011 and even 2010 and in 2013, it was because we had a really experienced defense. And you almost can't have a more ready and experienced defense than we have. There's 10 of 11 starters returning. And the guys that are behind them, Devin Harper and Calvin Bundage, are 2 backups. Those guys have played a ton of snaps. Brock Martin's played a ton of snaps. Actually, I said that Christian Holmes was going to be a starter. He's listed as the backup to Jarek Bernard Converse at corner, but you know that he's going to play a ton.
Absolutely.
So Oklahoma State has built up a lot of depth on this defense. They have a ton of experience and talent coming back. And this, for the first time in a long time, we can say that the defense can be a strength for this team. And we'll get to offense in a little bit. And, of course, there's tons and tons of talent on that side of the ball, and that's what everyone nationwide focuses on is Spencer Sanders, Chuba Hubbard, Tylan Wallace. But we're here in Stillwater telling you that the defense is someone to watch. Oklahoma State's always counted out in terms of defense. Everyone always says that they never play defense, and it's the Texas and OU and Iowa State of the conference that play a ton of really good defense. Well, I think that Jim Knowles and Mike Gundy have sat down during this pandemic of the summer and said, we're going to make it a point to have a really good defense because we have a lot of guys that can play on Sundays. And so we're going to impose our will, and I think that we'll see that a lot today against Tulsa.
And that one hole, just to put it into perspective, that one hole on the defense that we had to fill was cornerback A.J. Green leaving. But we have Rodarius Williams, like we have said, filling in for him, who started all 13 games last year. So that's really not much of a hole to fill. But we're going to send it to Alex really quick at BPS, and she's going to give us a live update over there. Never mind, we're not going to send it to Alex yet. We're going to keep talking about Rodarius Williams. Alex isn't ready yet, and that's okay. Rodarius also had a career-high 9 tackles last year against Oregon State and 7 against Iowa State. And we're talking about that Iowa State, Texas, OU defense. And people just want to put all in all, they say Big 12 doesn't play defense. That's not going to be the case anymore.
I mean, the Big 12 struggles on defense. But I think that there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to that because of how good the offenses are in the Big 12. And that's why defenses really do struggle. Of course, there are not a lot of guys that, make it to the NFL from the Big 12, but I think that is going to change. All right, now we are going to send it to Alex Dusky live at Boone Pickens Stadium.
Thanks, guys. So I have some players for all of you guys to watch from home. On the offensive side of the ball, obviously we have the big 3 coming back with quarterback Spencer Sanders, running back Chuba Hubbard, and wide receiver Tylan Wallace. They are all expected to have a great game and, even more important, a great season. Some new players, less familiar faces, are true freshman Brennan Presley. He is coming out of Bixby, Oklahoma. He was Oklahoma Gatorade Player of the Year last year, and Tylan Wallace and Coach Gundy had nothing but high praise for this guy. He has such a great attitude. Another player to watch is Tay Martin, and he is a senior transfer from Washington State, also wide receiver. And
Welcome back to the pregame report. It is the moment that we have been dying to talk about, Parker, and that is this Cowboy offense. We have key members returning, as everyone knows. We have Dylan Stoner coming back, Tevin Jenkins, and LD Brown, not to mention Dylan Stoner, I already said him, Spencer Sanders, Chuba Hubbard, and Tylan Wallace is back now. This is what everyone is coming to this game today for.
Yeah. This is the showcase for Oklahoma State. This is why they're ranked 11th in the country. This is why a lot of guys like Reggie Bush for Fox's broadcast picked them to make the college football playoff. It's the strength of our offense. We can talk about. Let's start with Chuba Hubbard.
I like that.
So, Chuba, a lot of things have been said about him. A lot of things have been talked about him. And a lot of things happened this summer in terms of social justice issues and him and Mike Gundy's relationship. But I think all of that has been ironed out now.
Absolutely.
Chuba Hubbard is the most talented running back in the country. I'll make that statement objectively. I see a lot of Christian McCaffrey in him. If you want to make a comparison, he's a guy that can catch the ball. He's a bigger back that can really take a lot of punishment. And, of course, he's a speedster coming from a track background. Chuba Hubbard is going to be a guy that if he stays healthy and has a season like he did last year, he not only will be in the Heisman conversation, the Doak Walker conversation, but also in the conversation to possibly be a first-round draft pick. The offense should run through him, but there's a ton of guys to spread the ball to. So I think Chuba is just going to be that ultimate luxury that we have, a guy that we can hand it to as much as we want, a bell cow back, if you will, when we need him, and also a guy that can be a complement if the passing game is really getting going.
Yeah, you said if Chuba Hubbard stays healthy and has a season like last year, he can get all these awards and accolades. But I think if he stays healthy, then he will have the season he had last year. That's really all that he has going. All my notes say is that Chuba Hubbard is very good because there's so much to say about him, and there's so much that I could have put down for him, but I don't need to do it because we all watch him so carefully because he is so good and so much fun to watch and so explosive and fast, and he's so great at running routes. Not to mention our offensive line is so great at making holes for him, and that's why we had one of the best rush games last year.
Yeah, you mentioned Tevin Jenkins at left tackle. He's a redshirt senior. He's been a starter for a long time, I think 3 or 4 years now. He's the best offensive lineman that we have. He's going to be the guy that really protects Spencer Sanders' blind side and also is the leader for that unit that returns a lot of guys. I mean, again, we have a grad transfer in Josh Sills who came from West Virginia being at that left guard position. So that left side of the offensive line is going to be its strength. We did lose Bryce Bray to a transfer to Tulsa, coincidentally. So a guy that to look out for is Hunter Anthony, who's going to be replacing him. He's a redshirt sophomore. He's a really big guy. He's a guy that has a lot of talent, and the coaches talk about him. I trust Charlie Dickey. He's the offensive line coach for Oklahoma State. He was the offensive line coach at Kansas State for a long time. This is his second year now with the Cowboys, and I think that he's going to have that offensive line hungry and primed to make as many holes for Chuba Hubbard as they can and to protect their quarterback in Spencer Sanders, who last year, of course, had that injury and had to be taken out.
I guess I take back my statement when I said if Chuba stays healthy, then he will have the season he had last year because his O-line is such a big part of his performance. So if him and his O-line can stay healthy, then they will together have the same season they had last year.
There's so much that we can talk about, Lainey. Let's go to Spencer Sanders, though.
Down.
So he's been it's been covered a lot. He's been working with new quarterbacks coach Tim Rattay, who comes from the NFL. I believe he was with the Redskins, and he's really worked on pocket presence. He's worked on not turning the ball over, and he's worked on being that leader that the Cowboys need now. It's going to be his third year on the team, second year as a starter. So it all comes down this year. If the Cowboys want to make the college football playoff, if the Cowboys want to beat OU for the first time since 2014, if the Cowboys want to achieve those goals that they set way back in March, it's all on Spencer Sanders' shoulders. He's got to be a guy that doesn't turn the ball over like he struggled with early last season. He's got to be the guy that commands the offense and commands the huddle, especially in the locker room. And he's got to be a guy that uses his athletic talent to make plays. This year, we have a lot of guys coming back on defense. We have Talon Wallace coming back. We have Dylan Stoner, and we have Braden Johnson, 3 really experienced receivers. But if Spencer Sanders is turning the ball over or making bad decisions in the pocket, none of that means anything. So this year, and specifically this game against Tulsa, I want to see Spencer Sanders not throw any interceptions, not fumble the ball. I just want to see him have a really consistent game showcasing this Oklahoma State offense that's as good as it's been in a long time.
Absolutely. Showing off his athleticism is definitely important. His teammates have described him as a freak athlete. That's a direct quote. So he needs to show off that athleticism in order for us to really gain complete trust in him. But he was Big 12 Offensive Freshman of the Year last year by the league's coaches. So I think that says a lot about the rest of his performance despite all these,
and that's without playing the end of the season. He still was able to earn that award. And I'm sure Adam will talk about this coming up in Who Has the Edge, but we haven't really talked about Casey Dunn, the new offensive coordinator. Of course, last year there was Sean Gleason in his first year, and he's now moved on to go to Rutgers. So Casey Dunn, a longtime part of this offense, was a receivers coach forever, is now Gundy has given him the reins, and I think the offense will be a little bit different this year under him, and I'm excited to see how he does.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll give Adam a chance to talk because we could go on forever about this offense. So, Adam, tell us who has the edge between Tulsa and OSU in today's game.
Well, I have to say, between all the who has the edge segments, this one is actually probably the closest. I'll still go with Oklahoma State. They have the edge offensively, but Tulsa, they are not a bad offense, right? They did unfortunately only win 4 games, a 4-8 record a season ago, but in the American Conference, a offensively strong conference, they are a solid team, right? They have Seth Boomer, a 2-year returning starter at quarterback, and something that we really need to watch out for is Sharmani Brooks, right? Their star running back, a season ago, he rushed for over 1,000 yards, 1K. He joined the 1K rushing club a season ago. And I'm going to be honest, I really think Sharmani Brooks is one of the top group of 5 running backs in the NCAA FBS. Most games, right? Most games when Tulsa plays their opponent, Sharmani Brooks and the Tulsa running back core is going to have the advantage. Sharmani Brooks is very, very good. But when you play Chuba Hubbard and you play Oklahoma State, Chuba Hubbard statistically is the best rusher in the NCAA a season ago. No one will be better than Chuba Hubbard because Chuba Hubbard is the best. But Sharmani Brooks, he will be very good. It'll be interesting to see, right? The rush defense, the pass rush defense from both teams. Let's talk about the O-line real quick, right? Rice Schneider, Jackson Player, center versus nose tackle. That is going to be a very, very interesting matchup. Jackson Player from Tulsa, their nose tackle. He is a very elite an elite run stopper. We'll see how that works. Rice Schneider, that offensive line, needs to get their money's worth, carve out some big holes for Chuba Hubbard to run through. But like you said, Spencer Sanders, he is rested. He is ready. A different guy is what people are telling me, right? A new quarterback coach, Tim Rattay, formerly with the Washington football team, comes here to Stillwater to work one-on-one, quality one-on-one repetitions with Spencer Sanders. We will see how it all goes. Then, of course, it goes without saying the potential Heisman candidate, the Canadian Cowboy Chuba Hubbard, representing the metro area of Edmonton, Alberta. He is a threat. Do not blink at Boone Pickens Stadium because you will miss Chuba Hubbard running through the end zone. I am so excited to watch this offense. So much good stuff going on. And then Dylan Stoner, right? The receivers. Like you guys said, I could go on and on. I could do a 24/7 talk show about this Oklahoma State offense exclusively. Well, actually, maybe not, but you get the point. But the thing is, Dylan Stoner, a Tulsa native, Cowboy fans were introduced to him a season ago, kind of emerging. He had a breakthrough season, right? 5 touchdowns in 12 games. I expect him to be even better. But then, of course, with Tylan Wallace returning, he's their star wide receiver. You see reps, targets. Are they going to go back to Stoner? Is it going to be all Wallace? I mean, we'll have to see about that. Tylan Wallace was a threat. He made that great play, probably one of the best plays I've ever seen was that stiff arm against Iowa State in Ames. And as you can see right here on the B-roll, look at him streaking down the sidelines to the house untouched. The offense is going to be exciting. I'm so excited. Game time is almost here. I'm so excited. Back to you guys. Actually, check that. I think we are. All right, back to you guys.
All right, thanks, Adam.
It's good to see that you're just as excited about this offense as we are. And now we're going to take it to Alex live at BPS and see how excited she is. Never mind, we're not going to take it to Alex
More
yet.
technical difficulties. That's okay, though.
That's fine.
Also, I would like to say, I
ahead.
said the coach Tim Rattay was for the Washington Redskins. Excuse me. They are now called the Washington Football Team. I'd like to make that change. All right, now we're going to send it to Alex back at Boone Pickens.
Hey guys, so as you can see behind me, there are plenty of fans here to fill the stadium to its 25% capacity limit. Football is back here at Boone Pickens Stadium. The atmosphere is amazing. There is plenty of orange everywhere. It's good to see. We love to see the fans turning out to support our Cowboys throughout this exciting football season. Everyone's excited. It's about 10 minutes to kick off. The weather is still beautiful. It's a sunny day, slight breeze, a great day for some college football. I'm predicting OSU to win today against Tulsa 42-3. You know, go big or go home, but I'm just amazed at the Cowboy offense and our defense this year. You know, they've been saying that our Oklahoma State's defense is one to rival the SEC, so we'll be looking out for that. As always, go Pokes. Back to you guys in the studio.
All right, welcome back. Thank you for that, Alex. We have breaking news that Sharmani Brooks tore his ACL in practice, so he will not be playing today. In case you forgot, that's the exact injury that took Tylan Wallace out all last season.
That's a big loss for Tulsa in a game that, I mean, the odds were against them. That's just going to stack them up a lot more. For sure.
I might have to change my final score prediction now. Haven't really thought about this, but yeah, that is so unfortunate. We hope that he recovers okay, and we hope that Tulsa does okay without him. But we're going to take it over to Adam for Buy or Sell.
Yeah. Guys, it's a fun segment concluding our show, Buy or Sell. The brightness is a little low on this, but that is all right. So, my proposal to you guys, Spencer Sanders, throwing no interceptions with 4 touchdown passes. I'll start with you, Lainey. Do you buy, or are you going to sell that?
I'll buy it. No interceptions is kind of a crazy thing, but it's Tulsa. And we're hoping to see no interceptions anyway, so I'm going to be optimistic, and I'm going to take it. I'm going to buy it.
Yeah. All right. It looks like my telestrator's not working, but that is all right. So, Lainey, you will buy. Parker, what about you?
I'm also going to buy this, Adam. I think that the interceptions part is what I'm most focused on. I really hope that he can throw 0 interceptions. That's what I'm going to be looking for. But the 4 touchdowns, I mean, a guy that we didn't even talk about was Tay Martin, transfer from Washington State. He's a guy that's super experienced. He started every single game for 2 years in a row for the Cougars, who under Mike Leach threw the ball all over the field. He's a guy that's going to see a lot of playing time. He's a guy that Mike Gundy talked about in his presser is going to see a lot of snaps. So I think Spencer Sanders has ultimate weapons, and I think that he's going to throw for 4 touchdowns.
Hey, so our next one, Chuba Hubbard, rushing for over 250 yards. Parker, buy or sell?
I'm going to sell this, Adam, actually. I'm a huge proponent of Chuba. I've made that very clear. I think he's the best running back in the country. But I think that today is going to be more of a rest day for him. They're going to get him going early, maybe get a lot of those close to 250 yards early in the first half, maybe get him a couple touchdowns, and then just rest him in the second half if we have a big lead. With the news of Shamari Brooks being out for the Tulsa Hurricanes, I see this being not very close, honestly, especially not at halftime. So I don't know if he's going to make that mark. I could be totally wrong, and he could have 400 rushing yards or 350 rushing yards. But I'm going to sell this one, Adam.
So, Lainey, what about you?
I'm also going to sell it just because, like Parker said, I don't see Chuba staying in the whole game. If it was guaranteed he was staying in the whole game, then absolutely. But I think that LD Brown is going to get to see quite a bit of playing time today. Chuba's probably going to come out somewhere in like the middle of the third quarter.
Yeah.
So, yeah I'm going to sell this.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see how things pan out as the game progresses. But our third of 4th buy or sells, Dylan Stoner, plus 100 receiving yards. Lainey, buy or sell?
I'll buy it. I think that even though Tylan is back, they're going to, Spencer's not going to throw absolutely everything to him. So I think they're going to rely on Dylan a lot this game, and I could totally see it happening. It's not that hard for him. He's Mr. Reliable.
Exactly. Parker, buy or sell?
Oh, this is a tough one, Adam. I'll buy it. I'll buy it. I think that they're going to spread the ball out a lot this game, but I can see Stoner kind of sneakily having the most receiving yards for this game. I don't think Tylan Wallace is going to play a whole lot. I think they're going to keep his snaps down as much as they can. He's coming back from injury. Maybe get him involved really early, and then as Chuba, just kind of back him back up in the second half. And I can see Stoner kind of taking that role, taking that lead receiver role in the second half with the guy that I mentioned, Tay Martin, Landon Wolf, Braden Johnson, D. Anderson. I could go on and on with all the receivers Oklahoma State has. But yeah, I'll buy that. The Dylan Stoner has 100 receiving yards or more.
Thank you, guys. So, the end of the show, our last buy or sell. Oklahoma State defense forcing 2 or more interceptions. Parker, buy or sell?
I'm going to sell this. I got to sell this. I don't think that they're going to get 2 interceptions. I think if they get 1, that would be great. But I see this game being more about getting a lot of 4 and outs, getting a lot of stops, controlling the flow of the game, controlling possession time. I think that, if anything, this is going to be more a game about fumbles. As we've said a lot of times, Tulsa's starting running back, their best player on offense is out, so they're going to play their backup. And I think that he may struggle with fumbling, especially early on in this game. But I just don't see Oklahoma State getting 2 or more interceptions.
Yeah, very interesting point. Lainey, to close out the show, 2 or more interceptions, buy or sell?
This is a tough one. I think this is one of those cases where if I were in Vegas and I was putting money on this or choosing to not put money on it, I would definitely impulsively say buy because that's how I tend to do things in life. So I'm going to sell this one, though, because we have a really great secondary, but I'm not going to discredit Tulsa enough to give up 2. I think we'll definitely have an interception. That will happen because our secondary is so good. But yeah, I don't see 2 just because I don't want to discredit Tulsa so much.
Okay, I think we should quickly do some predictions here, right,
Yes,
Lainey?
down final score predictions.
So we'll start off with Adam. Adam, what's your final score prediction for today's game?
Okay, so my final score prediction is 41-21 Oklahoma State. And of course, that was prior to Sharmani Brooks' injury. But hey, we'll see. I still will not be surprised if Tulsa can score 21. Oh, but I would like to add how they score that 41. That is 4 touchdowns, right? 4 touchdowns and extra points, and then 2 field goals.
Nice.
All right, Lainey. I believe that I had like 38-7 is my final score in the graphic, but I think that that's going to be a lot higher. I'm going to go as far as say like 45-7, maybe 48-7. I think Oklahoma State rolls in this game. They're the better team. Tulsa is not returning a lot of guys on defense. So I'm really excited for this game, and I can't wait.
Wow. Yeah, it was a close game last year, but like you said, not a lot of guys are returning on defense. I gave it 48-24 OSU, and I'm going to stick by that despite Brooks being out. And that's it for the show today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to our first pregame report of the season, and we'll catch you before the next game. Make sure you're tuned in to the Cowboys game right after this.
Oh, there you go. Superstar.
The end of the practice is when we do all of our intensity drills.
Okay.
She was going at it.
Stop. If we get them to Detroit by, let's say Monday the 15th. Right there. There we go. Yeah. Just, you can't.
Don't want to talk about it.
When you see the water tower, you're gonna make a right.
If we win this, is the one way to get to the playoffs. I know.